Have you ever wondered why we love some authority figures and can't stand others? Or why rebellions are built on amazing leadership and the leadership of the monarchy or the government at the time starts to crumble? It is all down to this one set of aspects. Do you trust the relationship between that authority and the decisions they're making? If you don't have trust in either of them, that company, corporation, government, monarchy, it's going to crumble. And we don't want that for your company. So we're going to talk about the 5 elements of a transparent decision-making process and the 5 things a feedback loop are going to help you accomplish in your company and why these are so important. As always, there's a link below. It will help you quickly come back and recap this information, or it's great to write some notes on. So go and have a look at that. It's a free PDF just to help you quickly recap this information at a later date and see it in a really nice, simple graphic. Welcome to Culture Codex, where we help you put the humanity back in your company. Whether you are the leader, CEO, founder, no matter who you are, you want to know that you can trust the decisions you're making. And decisions that are being made have to be in line with the company's values or the corporation's values, because the community has to stand behind you. They have to help in creating what you just promised in that decision, whether that's you've signed a new contract or you've decided to shut down a part of your company. The community, your company, has to help restructure. And unless you have people on board, it's going to be very difficult to create the results that you deserve. There are 5 elements to a transparent decision-making process. The first is you need to know what your goal is. You need to know where you're going to, because what decision you make has to be in line with that goal. Second of all, you have to know your values. Without your values, if it doesn't align, your people, whether they're your consumers or whether your team, aren't going to be on board. They're not going to be helping you get there and really facilitate the creation of whatever it is you've just made that decision for. Thirdly, it needs trust. It needs trust and rapport. That leader has to have the trust of the people. And to have that trust, they need to know that the decision is being made on their behalf with a rationale that they can believe in, which is why you have to start off with knowing where you're going to and what the values are, because people have already signed on to that shared vision that you've promised them. That's why they've become part of your company. So by having their rapport, having their trust, you are going to be having a much better decision-making process. Fourth, it helps you establish a process for ensuring everyone's voice is heard. They may not all be taken up, but having a space where minority voices are heard helps them know that you are at least listening. You may reject what people have to say, but you need to be able to create a forum where people can contribute before you reject everything. And that in itself will help you not only avoid big mistakes, whether that's in advertising. Often we see these big ones in advertising, whether it's the big debacle that went down at H&M with the little boy in the jungle, King of the Jungle, or King Monkey? What was it? King Monkey jumper. That was a big debacle. But by having a conversation with some of their community, they could have avoided that. Last but not least, it has to be measured and reviewed, which is why we then talk about the 4 aspects of a feedback loop. Because you need to be making sure that the decisions you make today, tomorrow you can go back and say, was this an effective decision? Should we make different decisions or use a different process for making decisions into the future? A feedback loop is where you go and you receive information, not just from the person who made the decision, but from all the parties involved. This allows people, no matter what their position in the company, to say what the effect has been of that decision. They get to look at the repercussions, because maybe your leader hasn't seen that 3 levels down or in team over there is now triple the workload. and they don't have the capacity to manage that workload. Or now maybe perhaps they don't have any work at all because they are now essentially redundant. So finding out what people's thoughts are as a result of that decision is essential. A feedback loop also gives you the opportunity to assess whether or not it was an effective decision. Did it help you reach your goal? And you can only do this in retrospect. That will help you evaluate whether the process was right. Did it help you make a step or several steps towards that shared vision of the future that you have sold people as a community, as a company, or even your consumers? Because everyone's part of your community because they want to go towards that vision. So having a look at this decision and saying, did it help us get there, will help you know if you need to review it. Authority is sometimes incredibly wrong. Maybe they're rash, maybe they're hot-headed, maybe they don't have the values of the community. One of the ways you can establish whether or not your leaders are doing their job right is whether or not they're in line with the ideals and values of all the people that are working with them. If there's a discourse between the leadership and the community, the company can't thrive. By having feedback loops, you know whether or not that leader is making good choices or bad choices for that community, for that team, for that specific part of your company. Last but not least, having a feedback loop lets you decide whether or not the structure of your company is doing really well. Maybe you need to shift. A lot of hierarchies need to be continually moving, job descriptions need to be changed, people from one team need to shift to another team. And you can only tell this when you are having a look at all the feedback that's coming across the board, because perhaps you haven't thought of something that someone else has said. It allows you to have much more resiliency in the long run, and it allows more people to feel empowered and engaged in the decision-making process. I can tell you that there are amazing resources out there. If you want to have a look at one company that's done incredible things with feedback loops, have a look at how Google has taken their promotions and the process that they use. It's not a straightforward, here's a company of people who are above you, they say you're good, let's give you a promotion or change your title. It's a very intricate, evolving process that they're continuing to refine. Have a look at Google's hiring and firing process, or even how they promote people. These are processes that have feedback loops inbuilt in them. It's a really interesting thing to have a look at. You can find this stuff anywhere you like. Google will tell you a good chunk about themselves because they believe in transparent decision making. Thank you for coming along on the journey to talk about transparent decision making and feedback loops. I hope this has helped you think about whether or not you're making effective decisions in your company and whether or not you're finding the right feedback to make sure that they are the right decisions into the future. I hope you've learned a lot and have a lot to think about. I'll see you in the next video. But until then, feel free to comment below, send us an email, check out our workshops and our course online. I promise everything is value-packed and ready to rumble. See you soon.